In this video, let's talk about the best ways to stay in budget and the ways to fall out of budget, because they kind of go together. And in our experience, the primary way to stay in budget or to go out of budget is to not make your selections during the pricing process. So while we work on getting the numbers together for the things that are not selections, so cost of the foundation, the bricks and sticks, so to speak, the labor to do the work, the allowance items, the selection items, plumbing fixtures, electric fixtures, flooring, those types of selections that are made by the client, by the homeowner. If they don't make firm selections or specific selections, we go with an estimated allowance based on what they like at the time, or what they're familiar with, or what they have in their current home. So that by the time it rolls around for them to make those selections, they've seen a million other things, they've been in the stores, they've seen all kinds of things that are different from what they originally talked about wanting, and sometimes significantly more expensive. So that when they make those selections, they're way out of budget from where we started, because we were starting from a selection that wasn't accurate to begin with. So we recommend and are trying to incorporate more into our process a time period during that pricing period where client will get with our selection coordinator and designer and actually make those selections. Select the plumbing fixtures that they want, the electrical fixtures they want, the appliances they want, the specific selections. Now, we're not going to order them, so it's not set in stone. A mind could still be changed, so it takes away that pressure of having to make a firm decision right now. But it allows us to have a specific list of allowances, selections, specific models, specific brands that go into our pricing to make that allowance a lot more accurate. So if we go into a home with an estimated allowance of $8,000 for appliances, and a client who had not looked at them previously, when the time comes to buy appliances, goes out and takes a look and realizes, oh, I really like this range that's $10,000 by itself. Well, that allowance is now blown out of the water with that. If they had looked at it ahead of time, if we had taken the time and made it in the schedule to make that selection beforehand, we'd have that number and it would be accurate. So that is one of the biggest things that we see people making the mistake of, not taking that time to make those selections before we ever get to a final number. And then that way they know going in exactly what these things are going to cost, unless they change their mind, which of course is always an option. So that's a good way to get out of budget. It's also a good way to stay in budget. The other thing is, when we sit down and we go through the plans, pay attention to the little things on the plans that we'll mark as we go along the way, in terms of number of can lights, number of switches, where we're going to have decorative fixtures, things like that. We'll go over those, but we always encourage people to have it very top of mind and to understand what they're looking at with the plans. And we do a little bit of a training period with the plans, because we know that most people aren't like us. They didn't grow up looking at those plans. And we'll make other videos down the line showing those tutorials and how to read a set of plans so that you know what you're looking at. That way you recognize when things aren't there that you want, or are there that you don't want, because sometimes those things can really affect pricing, and we don't know, because we can't know a lot of times what you're wanting, what you're not wanting, what you're thinking at the time, and what you're not. So the more time we spend focusing on the plans, focusing on actually making those selections, the better your allowance numbers are going to be, the better your overall number is going to be, the more accurate it's going to be. And notice, use the word accurate, not higher or lower, but accurate. It's like in the case of appliances. If as a homeowner, the range you always wanted was a $10,000 range, and that wasn't communicated, and we went in with an $8,000 allowance for your total appliances, well, the cost is going to be what it would have been anyway. But it's a whole lot better to have that number from the beginning than to have to up that allowance at the time of selection, because we didn't get that written down and set in stone beforehand. So that makes all the difference in the world. We're going to make that time in the pricing process to get those things nailed down. You should always make sure, if you're not in Central Texas, you're not building with us, make sure if you're building a custom home, you take the time to sit down before you get to final pricing and go over exactly what you're wanting for plumbing fixtures, appliances, electrical fixtures, things like that. before the final price is put on that contract, before that final number goes down, so you don't have the big wild swings in those allowances when you actually make your selections down the road.